Welcome to the Divorce Literacy Podcast, the ultimate guide to understanding and mastering the art of navigating divorce. I'm your host, Theresa Springer, a certified divorce lending professional in the Portland, Vancouver area, and I'm super excited to bring to you insightful conversations that demystify the divorce process. I have spent years helping individuals make informed financial decisions during divorce, but I know that's only one piece of the puzzle. That's why I've teamed up with a true expert in the field. And joining me today is Juliet Laycoe, an accomplished attorney based in Vancouver, Washington. She has a deep passion for guiding individuals through the legal intricacies of divorce. She's also the author of Divorce Wisdom, Smart Strategies for Anyone Contemplating or Experiencing Divorce, and another book, Bits of Divorce Wisdom. Welcome, Juliet.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for the great introduction.
Oh, you're welcome. I am just so glad you're here today. So I would love to have you provide us a little background knowledge about yourself and your practice.
Sure. So as you mentioned in the intro, I'm based in Vancouver, Washington. I would consider myself pretty much a lifelong resident of the Clark County area. I've been here the bulk of my life. This is my 25th year in practice.
Oh my gosh.
All of that right here in my community of Clark County. And my primary areas of expertise as an attorney are family law, guardianship, and some estate planning. The majority of that is family law. And then breaking that down even more finer than that is a specialty in divorce. And taking that even at a more niche level, as you said, I guide people through the divorce process, and my emphasis is in doing so outside of a courtroom. So out of court settlement work through either mediation or negotiation or collaborative divorce.
Those are a lot of different specialties inside the divorce arena, aren't they?
Yes, while it all has the umbrella of divorce, you have to have obviously a lot of experience as an attorney, and then some additional training to do the mediation work and also the collaborative divorce, which is a very structured type of divorce process. And attorneys that are working with people in collaborative divorce have to be trained in collaborative divorce. And
I know that training is quite good in both those areas. I'm trained both as mediator and in collaborative. And I think both of those are an amazing way to handle a divorce without having to go to court, which some people don't realize those options are available.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. People enter a divorce process, or maybe as they're thinking about a divorce process, they're often paralyzed a little bit about what the process is going to look like. And they think back to what they've seen on TV or in the movies about being in a courtroom or having a judge make decisions for them. But there are other options. I call them process options for how you're going to get through the legal process.
That's a really good way to frame it. I thank you for doing that. So I know that each divorce is truly unique and everyone involved goes on their own journey through the process. If you could change anything or give a heads up advice to someone just starting down this path, what might it be?
That's a good question. I would probably tell people not to underestimate the emotional impact of divorce, even in the best of circumstances, or if you're the person that wants out of the marriage and you're filing, and so you feel a certain level of confidence that you're going to be divorced, there is always emotions at play. And they sometimes have a way of sneaking up on people, even if they're like, I'm so glad to be, ending this marriage or moving on. But emotions really do impact the divorce process, and they impact the players in the divorce, and sometimes they can even impact the negotiations. So I think the first thing I would give people a heads up on is not to underestimate the emotional impact of a divorce. The second thing I would recommend, highly recommend, is to not sweat the small stuff. So divorce is, as you said, a unique journey for every person, and there are going to be multiple decisions or issues or potential conflicts as you go through that process. And I think folks should really look at the big picture, where you want to be at the end. And so maybe, arguing over the dishes or who gets what set of towels, or even, as hard as it can be for parents, even if you have to bend a little bit on what time you're going to exchange your kids for visitation, those would be smaller pieces to not sweat and really focus on big picture and getting resolution at the end.
That is excellent advice, because I do think sometimes people get kind of wrapped around the minutia, and yes, they just don't see the big picture, which is how do you, end this, marriage is a contract. How do you end this contract and come out of it as whole as possible on the other side?
Right. Yes.
So I can only imagine the benefit of someone who is going through a divorce to have a strong divorce team. What do you recommend as far as what to look for when selecting an attorney or a financial planner, so on and so forth, to help you as a divorcing person through the process?
That's a really good question too. And I like the phrase team. I actually, in one of my books, I have an entire chapter on assembling your team. And that would absolutely include, your attorney, a financial advisor or planner, might include a divorce coach or a therapist. And I think the overarching thing I would look for is who you feel comfortable with. Just like choosing a primary care physician or any physician, you want a level of comfort. In a divorce, you're often sharing very private or confidential information, even with a financial advisor. You might be sharing details about your spending or assets. They're confidential issues. So you have to have a degree of comfort with the person you're working with. So I think that is kind of the prevailing thing I would look for. And then the second piece to that, whatever the professional you're working with, I would tell people to make sure that that professional is not only sharing information with you, but also listening to what you share. So those should be equal parts. Sometimes I think you get in an office, or you're sitting across from a professional and there's a lot of information coming at you, a fair amount of downloading, but that professional should also be listening to what you're telling them about your interests, your concerns, where you're confused or where you're feeling frustrated, so that they can tailor the information they provide to you or help you develop a strategy to alleviate those concerns or meet those goals or those interests.
Mm-hmm. So you want to have someone who's listening with you, not speaking at you.
Exactly.
Excellent. So do you have one memorable case that you've worked on? And if so, what impacted you the most about it?
I have lots of memorable cases.
No.
About 5 right now that they are kind of landmark cases in my career. But the one that I think about probably the most is the very first custody trial I ever did. It was early in my career. Probably I was 2 years in as an attorney. I represented an aunt and uncle who were trying to get custody of their niece and nephew to remove them from pretty neglectful home life. And what impacted me the most going through that process is, one, the amount of trust they placed in me. Again, I was a baby attorney, first trial I ever had, but they trusted me implicitly. The other thing that impacted me is how selfless they were. Selfless in terms of devoting a lot of resources for attorney fees and then supporting these kids. and selfless in terms of their time, because their kids, they had 3 kids of their own, already grown and out of the house or in college. And here they were going to take on, I think their niece and nephew were 6 and 8 at the time. And that case has always stayed with me. Somewhat rarely in my practice, I still communicate with that aunt and uncle. I get their Christmas cards. I have seen the niece and nephew who are now in their 30s. That's how long I've been practicing. And so it's a nice story for me, just that impact that the service I provided really helped those 2 kids survive. And they may not have had that aunt and uncle not stepped in.
Wow, that is an amazing story. And to really think about that aunt and uncle, and then you helping them achieve that goal of, taking those children in. I mean, that is absolutely so amazing. I thank you for sharing that story. Mm-hmm. My gosh. And for you to be able to see them kind of growing up and, they're successful, they're doing so much better than if that aunt and uncle had not really gone the lengths they did to get the children as, into their family.
Right. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. So I really appreciate your valuable time with me today. And I know that, I'm sure you know this, but I really respect you as an outstanding family law professional in our Vancouver and Portland marketplace. Where can someone who might benefit from your expertise go to learn about you?
Sure. So folks can follow me on social media. It's just my name on Instagram and Facebook. I also have a Facebook page called Divorce Wisdom. That is, as you know, from your intro title of one of my books. And then both my practice website is my name, JulietLaycoe.com. I also have a divorce wisdom site, which is divorce-wisdom.com. There's information about me, my books, my blog, and information if you are a female looking for some additional support at any point in the divorce process. I also have a private Facebook group that I moderate and provide a community of support to women in particular.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. You have a lot of points of access, which is really amazing. Do you have one final thought that you would like to leave today?
A final thought. Well, in terms of a final thought about divorce, what I would share with folks is that you've got to think of divorce as the marathon and not the sprint. And so it is and can be an endurance event, right? You're going to endure a process that isn't going to be pleasant. It wasn't what you bargained for, most likely, when you entered into the marriage. But having the wherewithal to see the big picture, as I've already mentioned, to play the long game, and to be patient with yourself and the process, and access the support and help you need along the way in order to make sure at the end of the marathon, you can recover and then, keep running.
Well, I think that's really great advice because you're right. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And I thank you so much for your time today. And are your books on Amazon? Is that right?
Yes, both my books are on Amazon. You can find the links either on the JulietLaycoe.com website or also on the divorce-wisdom.com website.
And I have read both your books and I think they're actually very good. So anyone who's really looking for additional information, that's also a great way to get some information on, starting the process or what the process might be like. So thank you so much, Juliet. I really appreciate your time today.
All right. Thanks so much, Theresa. I enjoyed being here.